Welcome into That's Boxing episode number. I've completely lost count.
That's Boxing episode 8?
8 something?
I don't know.
feel like this is going to be an 8-hour episode given everything that's going on in boxing right now. It is absolutely crazy. My head is spinning.
Last weekend was amazing. I'm still running high. Got the Loma fever.
You got Loma fever?
I got Loma fever. Last weekend was Canelo fever. No, this week is Loma fever.
Everyone into boxing that's over the age of 36 is just having a great day today.
Huge victory for the old guys. Absolutely.
Well, let's get in to some news. We got a ton to cover today, but I think first we should. You see this headbutt?
Wow. Yeah. So when you first saw the video, the old man's bleeding. You think, oh, who's beating up on the old guy?
Exactly.
And then you watch the video, and the dude did it to himself.
All right. So for you guys that didn't catch this, John Fury, Tyson Fury's father,
Big
John is walking through, kind of a crowded room in Saudi Arabia, getting ready for the fight, and there's some type of altercation with Team Usyk, and he headbutts the dude.
The dude who's like half his size. Looks like a teenager.
Tiny dude. Buzzhead gets headbutt, and John, what is with Fury's getting cut, man? He headbutts him,
right,
and he's just runs away bleeding. It was so bizarre. I went into full on like CSI mode, and I went through every video I could find, different angles of it, watched him be interviewed afterwards, watched the Ukrainian dude, and tried to piece together the whole story.
Right.
And every element I found just made Fury look worse and worse.
It's terrible.
Yeah.
It's so embarrassing. You know, it's the biggest fight of your career, and your dad's out there making an ass of himself. But they've been used to this. This is the Fury way. You know, His dad, it's not the first time his dad has embarrassed himself. His
dad did apologize, which I thought was interesting. He was he apologized and then immediately walked it back and was like, when you put disrespect on our family's name, this is who we are. This is what we do. I was like, dude, you need to settle down. So then they interview the other guy, and he's like, yeah, we were walking through the room and we were just chanting Usyk.
I saw that part.
And he just came up to me and headbutted me. And I'm like, that tracks.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, a sign of things to come, obviously.
Yeah, it's like soccer hooligan behavior in backstage of a boxing match between their respected teams.
Yeah. Well, we'll break it down later.
We'll get into.
We'll have to do a two-parter this week. Drop another one where we talk about Usyk Fury.
I think we're gonna have to,
because we got too much to get into.
Way too much.
But that's not the last Fury that's gonna bleed this week. Other news: Boots Ennis finally gets a fight. Cody Crowley, what do you think of this fight?
I think it's going to be the Boots show.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a hometown show for him in Philly. They're going to sell out that big-ass arena. He's going to put on a performance, and hopefully get himself back into activity. This should be kick the ball off and get it rolling.
Right.
For him to be fighting a few more times a year and, make a statement at 147, because he's the best guy in the division, but he doesn't fight often enough to make it clear.
Are you saying that because you're officially saying Crawford is out of the division?
Oh, yeah.
But he still holds all the belts, right?
No, they took one and gave it to Boots. Boots got elevated from a silver or interim or something to a full champ. But, of course, you hate to see these guys get the titles this way, because there's not a lot of glory in getting a email title.
True. But we got two boxers who are chasing other boxers right now. Right? You got Benavidez just chasing down Canelo, and you got Boots chasing down Crawford. And so it feels like neither of them ever fight. All they do is audition to fight somebody else. Mm-hmm. And I think Benavidez is taking the better approach, right? Because he's just line them up, I'll beat them, up and down, moving up in weight, just building the resume for essentially putting pressure on Canelo to say, if you don't fight this dude, right, you're ducking him. And Boots kind of has that natural pairing with Crawford, just because they're both super slick. It's a great fight, but he's not putting any pressure on him because he's not taking fights.
Yeah.
So he needs to just have a great show this time. Take another fight in 6 months, and just stack those up until it's Crawford, man, you kind of got to fight this guy.
Well, Crawford ends up losing all these titles. They're all going to scatter to the wind, and now Boots can go around and collect them all and become unified at 147. I think that's the move for him.
Yeah.
I don't think Crawford's going to come back down.
So you think that's it? That fight's never going to happen?
I think at his age, with his experience and his accolades, he's just checking off this big checklist, becoming unified and undisputed in as many weight classes as possible.
Yeah.
So up to 154. He'll be there for a while, collecting belts too.
I think you're right about that. Any other news? Anything to talk about? I think we should get into the card that happened on Saturday.
Yeah, let's talk Loma.
So first up, Andrew Maloney versus Pedro Guevara. Interesting fight. You got to see somebody get retired, but not in the way that you would think. Retired out of frustration.
Yeah, I was kind of midway cooking dinner / watching the fight, and got to mention the broadcast here. Get it out of the way. I'm always bitching about the broadcast, but Joe Tessitore is great. I appreciate him, though. He does say "put forth" a little too often. That's his he likes about every 3 minutes he'll say something about he's putting forth a great effort tonight, or that time when this guy fought that guy and they put forth such a great event.
So you got to say he put forth great effort.
Yeah,
man, it's just straining all the time.
And then, but then you got Tim Bradley, and I'm trying to multitask, and I wish these guys would talk about the fight that's that's happening,
right?
Because they're rambling, they're talking about other shit, they're going down rabbit holes, or Bradley's trying to give everybody a boxing lesson for free on TV. I'm like, dude, take it easy with
just commentate.
Just tell me what's happening so I can turn around and work on these burritos I'm trying to cook and know who's landing punches or not. But I was under the impression from half listening, half watching that Maloney was winning. So when they read the cards, I was a little surprised too. But I can't say I watched every second of that fight. And I wasn't too interested in that fight, so that's the way it goes. But that's the second Maloney to lose in a week.
Yeah.
On big cards, big fights. So, a lot of baloney for the Maloneys. He said
well, you were saving that one.
Yeah. Well, that's the old lady was saying every time they called him Maloney, she's like, "Are they saying baloney?"
Well, that's certainly what he felt like he got. I mean, I did the same thing. I was watching the fight, but I thought it was kind of a snoozer, to be honest. It was just tough to watch. It was tough to score. A lot of rounds where you're like, yeah, okay. I mean, I probably I didn't score it as I watched it. I probably would have had Maloney up a round or two, but not a robbery. And obviously, so Pedro gets the decision, and Maloney interviewed right afterwards just says, "I'm done with boxing. I'm out of it." And then they doubled down on it backstage. They interviewed him. He said, I think he walked it back a little bit, well, I'll think about it, but
Well, he also mentioned he had an injury, a torn bicep.
Right, yeah, he said
8 days out from the fight, but he fought anyways, but it's still a bunch of politics, and that's why he lost, and not the injury, and he had too many excuses kind of interweaving together, and he should have just had one and stuck to it.
I could see the frustration, but there's some irony of that happening on the undercard of Loma, who probably did actually get robbed from Haney for undisputed status that he'd worked his entire life for. That's a way more damaging blow.
Oh,
and
man.
then to have him come back, hey, he's still came back, didn't even kvetch about it that much.
Yeah, watching Loma cry backstage after that one was really hard. After the Haney
brutal.
fight.
It was weeping.
Please just cut away. I mean, if I would have been one of his assistants in the locker room, I would have thrown a towel over that camera.
They threw a towel over his head.
Yes, I would have said turn the fucking camera off. But I think you probably signed contracts and stuff to have full access, win or lose or draw. Ugh. But I still might have just kind of accidentally locked the cameraman in the bathroom or something. It's get the fuck away from my guy right now. He's having a moment.
Well, I feel like Maloney needed a little perspective on that one. But maybe he'll get the rematch and come back to take that without a torn bicep and stop him and kind of vindicate himself a little bit. But that's why you don't leave it to the judges.
Yeah, it's maybe why you don't just let all your emotions out in your post-fight interview, because now people are judging that more than they judge the fight. The fight was a nothing burger, but the post-fight kind of bitch fest is the news.
I agree. If you're a boxer, if you have a hot take about, or if you're impassioned about what you think just happened, maybe try to bite your tongue, watch the fight in a week, and then see what you think. Because I would guess watching that fight back, he's going to say, yeah, wasn't as dominant as I thought. I mean, maybe
he thought he lost 2 rounds, he said.
Yeah. Well,
no way.
Okay.
A bunch of baloney.
We'll never leave it to the judges, but also apparently never leave it to the announcers.
Wow. What a fucking mess we had there in that lady boxing match.
The next fight, Nina Hughes versus Trineka Johnson. And I couldn't. Super dominant performance. I mean, I thought Johnson pretty much shut her out,
especially the second half of the fight. She was just walking her down.
Oh, she
nailing her with everything.
Looked like the Terminator.
Yeah,
way bigger. Just very dominant. And then they raised the wrong hand. They raised Nina's hand because he reads the scores wrong.
He reads the scores wrong, and I saw the referee started lifting the other girl's hand, and then he had to put it down and look at his hands confused, he forgot his left from right, and then he's like, hilarious. Okay, and then they raise the other girl's hand, and she's jumping up and down, she's riding on her coach's shoulders, and then they call him back to the center again.
Yeah, and it was so funny because he didn't get on the mic and be like, I apologize, there's been an error, we need to read the scores again. He just like started reading them again, like deja vu.
Yeah,
like,
I thought
as if it hadn't happened.
that maybe the stream had glitched for a second and had gone back 30 seconds.
That's what I thought, because you texted me and I was like, again, I was like, whatever, doing something on Instagram, like as they were reading it, because I knew who was going to win. And then I just got so confused. And then I was like, wait, did I just not see that? What's happening?
Yeah.
They were just messing with us.
Yeah, terrible performance by that ring announcer. Embarrassing. And it's just a world title fight.
Yeah.
Like, not only they screw up the announcement and then flip it, then they cut away from any post-fight speeches. Mm-hmm. And they go back to the locker room and give us more Maloney baloney.
Yeah.
Instead of giving this girl a chance to speak her mind about that. And it just takes away from the actual performance. And now the story is the announcer.
Yeah.
Instead of this lady's,
super
triumph.
dominant. Yeah. I agree. Was that a Top Rank promotion?
I was.
Yeah.
It was a Big Bob show.
All right. So Bob Arum, if you're listening to this, I am available. I understand how to read boxing scores. I've got the voice. I've got, come on.
You can even do an Australian accent if you need him to.
Crocky, Jamaica Johnson takes.
Perfect.
I'll do whatever you need me to do. I'm available. Okay. Well, main event, Lomachenko puts the announcer out of his misery. No scores to read. Gets the stoppage. Were you going crazy? I was going crazy.
Dude, you called it. You're the Oracle.
Okay. I'm the Oracle. Go read. We got receipts. Go to our Instagram at That's Boxing. I called 11th round, 90 seconds in. I think I was about 30 seconds off.
Yeah, that's about as close as you can get, man. So you know what? You got the free lunch, man.
I'm
taking you out to the cart. We're going down to see Han down at Kim Jong Grillin downtown.
Kim Jong Grillin. I'm coming for you. I want my ribs. Loma goes in there from pretty much the first round. Looks like he's giving him a boxing lesson.
You think he won the first round?
I think he clearly was downloading information in the first round, right?
Download.
Yeah. So maybe maybe the first round's pretty even. I don't know if Kambosos won it. It was kind of just right.
I thought Kambosos did some really strong work to the body in the first round and looked like he was in the fight.
I think you saw the Kambosos game plan in the first round, right? Like you could tell it was top of mind, right? Hey, you're going to use the jab and you're going to set up the rear hand of the body.
Which is what Devin Haney did.
Which is what Devin Haney did and what everyone assumed he was going to do, because everyone thinks Loma's weak to the body because he keeps his elbows out so far, right? And kind of in that crouch forward spot. And so that was great. You see, like, oh, this guy's got a game plan. And then pretty much midway through the second round, that game plan went out the window. And Loma just kept getting more and more steam. And by the end of the fight, this is my favorite stat, Loma outlands Kambosos in power punches 105-36.
Wow.
Just put the beat down on him. It felt like everything that Loma threw was landing with perfect accuracy. And, I mean, it's been a long time since I saw a title fight where a dude swung and missed and fell down.
Yeah, he swung that big hook. Loma slipped it, rolled it, ducked it, and dude just hooked himself right to the ground. Which
is so interesting, like for people listening, like that shows, obviously you're getting outclassed in terms of you think you're going to land this big punch and the guy's that evasive, but also it shows how poor his fundamentals are in terms of throwing off balance and not transferring weight to his feet. You shouldn't fall down even if you're throwing a punch and hitting air.
Right. And when he tried to throw the right hand a few times earlier in the fight, he would fall forward with the right hand. Mm-hmm. And so he swung it twice one time. Like he shifted with the first punch into southpaw, kind of almost square.
Like stepping through,
and then threw it again, and both of them missed. And Loma, when you're watching Loma fight somebody that he's this much better than, just when the guy lands a punch, when Kambosos landed a hook somewhere in there in the middle rounds, I was like, oh!
Right.
He got him.
Right, he got him once.
I'm texting, oh shit, did you see that Loma guy hit?
Yeah.
That's how clean his performance was. You could count the clean shots that landed on one hand. Mm-hmm. There were some jabs here and there. There were some good body punches from Kambosos.
To be honest, there were a couple body punches that really look ferocious. I mean, I think Kambosos can crack. And when he would hit him with them, I'd go, oh man, like it almost made me worried because I was pulling for Loma. But he seemed pretty unfazed by him. I was worried that Loma was going to dominate like 8, 9, 10 rounds and then get stopped to the body or something really depressing like that.
Right.
But he walked through all that stuff and, eventually in the 11th gets the TKO. It looked like he just broke him down. I mean, he was cut, he was bleeding, and then he just get that one body shot comes in. It was too much, kind of delayed reaction. Kambosos hits the deck.
Well, the initial knockdown was ruled a push or a slip, but it came off a punch. It's just Loma came in and collided with him after the punch and did kind of push him down. But there was a straight left hand that scored. And then when Kambosos got up after that and they said no knockdown, they brushed him off, Loma was smiling. And he knew he had him hurt.
Yeah.
And he galloped up to him and sat down and ripped him to the body.
And then you see the ref comes in to stop it at the exact same moment that Kambosos' dad throws in the towel.
Yeah.
Everybody knew it was over. I watched and I actually didn't notice that they didn't call it a knockdown, because to me, plain as day, it looked like a knockdown. It looked like he hurt him to the body. Again, delayed reaction, and then he kind of went down.
Yeah. Such a dominant performance. Now the question is Loma back, or is Kambosos just not at that level?
I think both, right? I think Loma never left, first of all, right? I mean, I guess we have to reevaluate where Devin Haney sits in everything, but if we assume Devin Haney is still the boxer that we kind of thought he was, and he gets back to having dominant performances, and Loma beat him. I mean, in my world, I refuse to kind of take in the information that he lost. But even if he did lose, he lost a very close fight, right?
Yeah.
So that shouldn't really hurt his stock. He is getting older, of course, but he didn't really show signs of it in that fight. He certainly didn't show signs of it in this fight. And he whooped the shit out of Kambosos. Now, who is Kambosos, right? We kind of thought he was somebody that needed to prove everything going into this fight. That got one lucky win against Teofimo, whose heart damn near exploded in that fight.
Yeah, it was a damaged Teo that night. For sure.
Mentally and physically. So, I think Kambosos is done. That hype train is over.
Nobody is going to Australia to fight that dude at lunchtime on a Sunday ever again.
Yeah,
that show is done.
And I think Loma never left. And so the question for Loma is just like, can he collect all the belts and retire undisputed? When they interviewed him after the fight, I thought it was interesting because he basically said, I was done with boxing, but my dad asked me to not go out on that one and to come back. And so I came back because I respect him.
That is my theory. I think this could have been Loma's retirement fight. We didn't know it because he said something when they asked him about Tank Davis. He said, I never ducked anybody in my career. I'm going to rest for a while and we'll talk about it. But he's talking about it in past tense. Mm-hmm. Like when you see those murder mystery shows and they're interviewing somebody who killed somebody and they're like, oh, she was so nice.
Right. And you're like,
I don't know where she is. She had the best smile. Like she had or she has. Yeah, because she killed her. Like I think it's
you
know she's dead. I think he knows that it's probably best to go out on a win. He's a Hall of Famer, man, in my eyes.
Yeah,
and
which is crazy. Is the craziest record for a Hall of Famer.
He's amazing.
Like, what is he, like 19-3 or something like that?
He lost to Orlando Salido,
right?
He lost to Devin Haney,
and he lost to
Teofimo Lopez. Mm-hmm. But he never lost the fans. There's something about this guy, and it's only happened with a few boxers in my life where I'm really emotionally attached to this guy, almost like he's one of my own fighters. I like stand up as close to the TV as I can when he's fighting, and I'm just, my heart's in my throat, and I really don't want to see him get hurt, and I'm really invested in his win, emotionally invested, and when he wins, I'm winning.
Yeah.
And I don't feel that way about any other fighters right now. I used to feel that way about Triple G and this kid Loma back in the day, back when I was trying to box, 2014 through 2016, that era. And I think I might have flashbacks to those days when I would watch them fight, and I'm like, I'm going to be like this guy someday, But now, I'm out of that world, and when I watch boxing, I'm not attached to it. When I saw Errol Spence get beat down, I wasn't like emotionally attached.
Right.
Like, oh my God. It's like, but if something like that happened to Loma, I would need to seek therapy.
Yeah.
I love the guy.
Yeah,
so,
you're invested. And I think you read yourself into the fighter. You like the style. You resonate with this, like the style. The smaller guy maybe coming up in weight too. He's kind of been the underdog in some weird ways like that.
Yeah.
And I think the way in which he dominates it's just so, it makes you proud of the sport.
Right.
Because he's doing it with technicality, but also with heart, intelligence, all these things. And he was a showboater for a minute that kind of got people excited about him. But then he's, kind of had a maturation over his career that also you kind of grow up with him a little bit. And now he said after the Haney fight, he's like found God. He's like a very pious, religious man.
Yes.
He's almost monk-like.
Yes.
So he's got a lot of kind of endearing qualities.
So now we got to say, was that enough for him to walk away? Was that enough of a glorious victory? He's an IBF world champion. He could just hang it up and be a hero, or does he need something a little bit more, of a statement? Like,
well, when you listen to the words out of his mouth, he was ready to hang it up before this fight.
Yeah.
So this fight has to be enough.
I think it has to be enough. I personally don't want to see him get retired. I want to see him retire.
No.
And the other guys at 135, it's going to be a hard road for him. They're young. They're either extremely technically sound or extremely violent. I think you know the two boxers I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And I don't see those fights being good for him.
Well, let's talk about 135. So you've got Loma with the belt, you got Shakur with the belt, you got Tank with the belt, and you got Navarrete fighting for an interim belt
this weekend,
which we'll get to next. So if Loma has a path forward, it's obviously going to be a title fight. Of those three, as let's assume Navarrete wins and takes the belt, I would think you would not take Tank first.
No.
First of all, because Tank will probably duck him. Second of all, Tank's about to fight. So that's going to be a longer layoff, probably.
Tank's not going to fight again this year, probably. He's fighting right in the middle of the summer. That's his whole year.
Yeah, and obviously probably the highest risk for that fight. Navarrete may be the second highest risk.
I believe so, too. He's so unorthodox, and you see Loma struggle with that. Mm-hmm. Kambosos is so ordinary that he can be extraordinary to the maximum, freaking Matrix degree.
Yep.
But against a guy who's very awkward, like, he's going to struggle a bit.
So then that leaves Shakur, who Bob already said, that's the fight I'm trying to make in December.
Oh, and I also think Navarrete is the biggest of them all, as far as stature goes.
Really? Bigger than Tank? I think Navarrete walks around. He's coming up from 130.
I mean, like, reach and height.
Oh, yeah, that might be true.
I think he's the lankiest of the bunch.
Yeah, but I think he walks around probably the lightest, outside of maybe Loma.
I think Loma walks around like 140 pounds. Maybe. Yeah. He's not a big dude.
Shakur and Tank, I think, are pretty big, just in terms of like general body. I think they gotta cut down to start, because I mean Shakur lost his titles on the scale at 130 and had to move up to 135. It wasn't even really a choice. So he's just getting bigger. I mean, I feel like, I don't know if he'd go up to welterweight, but certainly he's going to 140 at some point.
Absolutely.
Tank, it's kind of a miracle that he's been able to just stay at 135. It's part of his gift, I think, has really helped him.
Absolutely.
But for Loma, I could see Loma, Shakur, end of the year, partly because it feels like a safe fight where you're not going to see Loma get retired by some brutal knockout.
One punch, sleepy time KO.
If anything, he'd go out like the Devin Haney fight, like, close fight, lost too many rounds, right? And then it's like, hold your head high and retire. But if he wins, you've unified, you got a huge win, then you can kind of decide, well, do I want to take on Navarrete now, or do I want to retire? Like, he could do it incrementally, right?
Yeah, it's interesting. Now, if there wouldn't have been a title on the line here, it would have been easier for him to walk away. Now you got that belt on your shoulder, you got to defend it.
Yeah.
Or unify it, or all the things you can do with it.
He's been unified, but he's never been undisputed. And I think that's maybe the hardest question now is, does it matter if you're willing to take one or two fights? You need to take 3 fights. Unless you think Navarrete and Tank are going to fight and unify and give you an easier path.
And with the pace of boxing these days, that's going to take him 2 years. And he's already 36, going on 37. We're talking the guy's going to be 40 years old, fighting Tank for the final showdown.
Yeah.
And Tank is he's 28 or 29.
Yeah.
So he's going to be in his physical prime at 32 years old by the time this fucking thing happens. So I don't want to see it, man. It's a heartbreaker. I already admitted I'm way too emotionally invested in this guy. If he fights Tank, I'm going to be like looking through my fingers like a little kid watching a horror movie. I don't want to see my guy get knocked out.
Yeah, I feel the same way. But I also feel similarly about Shakur. So having those two fight, I'm like, well, I guess I can't lose or I can't win. Let's talk about Navarrete in a second. But first, before we do, those 4 fighters, all the belt holders at 135. Give me the ranking. Your ranking. Quick. Who's number 1?
Loma.
Loma's number 1. So Loma fights Tank. Loma wins.
Yeah, exactly. 8 times out of 10. But those 2 times.
Wow. Loma wins 8 out of 10 times against Tank.
Kid loses rounds every fight, and then he knocks you out. He's the Deontay Wilder of the fucking lightweight division.
That, and then he knocks you out part is kind of important.
Yeah.
A big part of the sport.
I know, but if Loma could walk that tightrope, I think he beats him most of the time.
All right.
But he only got one shot to do it. He's got to be the perfect guy on the perfect night and be perfect for 12 rounds.
Wow. Okay, so Loma number 1. This guy's really on the Loma train.
I'm talking
we're
about
learning a lot
I'm-
here,
Yeah,
listeners.
no, bro. Yeah.
He likes the old guys.
Wait till you see the tattoo.
Yeah. Yeah. Who's number 2?
Oh man, I have to give number 2 to Tank.
Tank number 2. Number 3.
Shakur,
And then Navarrete.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna go Tank number 1.
Wow.
Even though I hate giving him that because I honestly don't think he's earned it, but just from trying to piece together the shit fights that he's taken and his performance in those, I feel like he could do it. I feel like he's number 1, then Shakur, then Loma, then Navarrete.
Okay.
That's how I got it.
We got it mixed up a little bit there. That's okay. I think you just like the big puncher. I like the sweet boxer.
It's not what I like. I think Tank, so he's the most economic puncher in
Right,
all
he's
of
got
boxing, right? He throws the least punches, which is why he loses so many rounds. But man, it feels like the only person that can beat Tank is someone who can survive Tank, like Pitbull, right? Where Pitbull is able to go 12 rounds. He still loses, but at least he was able to put in the work to potentially piece together a decision,
Sure.
right? But that's tough. That takes a level of toughness. I don't know if Loma has that toughness. Maybe Navarrete does. Like Navarrete could maybe overwhelm Tank. And he's going to be there to get hit, but if he's just so tough and he wins enough rounds.
Navarrete's been down. He was down and got
Valdez,
that long
right?
count.
Valdez?
No, the kid
no,
that
no.
Valdez beat Smith.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it was like a 30-second count. On
Yeah,
knockdown.
it was bad. But he got up and he swarmed him. And
Yeah. I think if we rank him based on risk, or punching power, we got to put Tank at the top. Of
course.
Loma, clearly not a power puncher. He's an overwhelmer.
Overwhelmer with technicality. Because I would say Navarrete is like the poor man's Loma, right? He like a lot less technical, but still throws all those crazy punches from awkward angles and just kind of still swarms you, right?
Yeah.
I want Shakur to be number 1.
I wish Loma was 10 years younger and we could do a 4 Kings, thing with these 4 guys. But I hope Loma doesn't get in there and get hurt. That's all,
Well, we'll see how it nets out. Probably the most exciting division in boxing. And we're going to learn a little bit more this next Saturday. Emmanuel Navarrete versus Denik Bernchik. Did I say his name right?
No. Berenchik.
Emmanuel Navarrete versus Denis Berenchik. What do you think about this fight? How do you see this playing out?
I think it's a Navarrete win. Mm-hmm. I think that he's going to do his weird long uppercuts and leaping hooks and awkward timing, and I think he's going to get a good win.
Yeah.
I'm not super hyped on it because my attention's been pulled elsewhere.
We got another big fight on the same day. It's going to be a 24-hour boxing extravaganza
you
this
might have to
Saturday.
try to get a nap or something in between so you're fresh enough to digest.
If that works out, I feel like those morning Saudi cards always go till like 4:30. They go so late, and then this next one starts at 5. That's it. That's the day. You sleep during the undercard.
Yeah, I think it'll be a good fight. I think it'll go the distance, but I think that's my prediction. It'll be a distance win for.
So you take Navarrete by decision.
Vaquero, yes.
Yeah, I can see that. Berenchik, I mean, he's a Ukrainian boxer, fought almost entirely in Ukraine, international champion. I like his style. I mean, he has that kind of herky-jerky, like in and out Ukrainian style where you lean kind of to your left and your right over your front leg and a lot of waist bending. Little mini Usyk, fought on Usyk's undercard with Dubois. I think he can give Navarrete more trouble than people might anticipate, but it's really hard to see him coming out with the victory.
Yeah. No, I don't think that's going to come out for him, but I think he's going to give us a tough fight. But, we had a Ukrainian fight last weekend. We got a Ukrainian fight this coming weekend, and he's fighting too. That's 3. One of them's going to have to lose, and I think it's going to be him.
Yeah, I think that's right.
They can't get a clean sweep for the whole country.
Also on this card, top 10 ranked Giovanni Santillan versus Brian Norman Jr., 2 unbeaten welterweights. It would be a pretty good fight. I mean, Santillan's the pretty heavy favorite.
Yeah, I was checking out Norman's BoxRec. He's been around. He's done some work, but this is going to be a tough test for him at this level. I think he's going to get worn out.
Yeah, I like Giovanni kind of by stoppage.
Yeah, I think he's got the skills to do it.
I think that could be good. And then, our unsung hero, Kiki Torres, is facing undefeated fellow top-ranked boxer Brandon Moore. BoxRec's got him the number 12 ranked heavyweight, 6'6", orthodox fighter, unbeaten.
And they're really moving Kiki along, aren't they?
He fights more than anybody.
He's fighting like the old school. It's been twice already this year, or 3 times already this year.
Maybe 3 times. He's fighting 4 or 5 times a year.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
Moving
I mean, he's not getting any rounds in, but he's fighting.
Yeah.
Do you think he walks through this guy, or you think it feels like a step up in test for him, which is the right move?
Yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, if he's really number 12, but I don't know enough about the guy and how he's going to show up on the night. I think Kiki he puts these guys through it.
Yeah,
he's a real pressure fighter. He's a hard hitter. He's aggressive from the very first bell.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of these heavyweights, these low-level heavyweights, want to touch gloves and dance for the first few rounds and say, "Hey, man, let's just get through this thing. You and me together, buddy. We're going to get through this." But this guy, Kiki, comes out and takes care of business right away.
Yeah, one of my favorite boxers to watch fight. Absolutely,
friend of show.
Yeah,
friend of show. Like we say, if you ever get your picture taken with a boxer, you have friends for life.
That's true.
So you got your picture with the kid, and now we're friends for life. He'll be on the show before you know it.
He was one of the most humble dudes ever, but it's my girlfriend's favorite boxer, right? And so she's like yelling at, like we see him ringside, right, the TO fight, and she's like yelling at him, like Key, and he looks at us, points to himself, like, me? You talking to me? It's like, yes, you're a famous boxer. You're on television. We're talking to you. Come take a picture with us. Say what's up.
Yeah.
So shout out Kiki Torres.
Speaking of heavyweights, let's talk about what's coming up this weekend.
Tyson Fury, Alexander Usyk, good versus evil. Which one's which? I don't know. That's up to you guys.
Oh man, clearly Usyk's good.
Hey, you said it.
Hey, we'll find out. We'll talk all about it in part 2.
Part 2. We'll probably drop it on Wednesday. So stay tuned, and we'll have picks and predictions, and we'll break it all down.
Well, that's Dust.
That's Coach.
And that's boxing.
And that's boxing.